Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting of the Community Justice Collaborating Council to order. Phil and I have been taking the role, and so we'll dispense with that. We certainly have a quorum, and I greatly appreciate everyone's, again, conscientious efforts in this project that we continue to develop and nurture. The minutes from our September 14 meeting were included in your packet. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes? Hearing none, they'll stand approved as submitted. I know we have a number of people in the public gallery. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Any public comments? We welcome students from UW-Madison who are here, who have been observing, as I understand, treatment court, are here observing this process. I think went up and viewed and talked to the folks from Onyx House yesterday, and they are part of the engagement that we entered into last year with UW. So we welcome them and certainly will look forward to any input they might have.
Judge
Any
Edom,
other public comments? Yes, Judge Black.
I think most of the people in this room know that we've had a free legal clinic in St. Croix County for a number of years, and members of the local bar volunteered to man that and women that for a number of years. Very significant resource. There's a number of people in our county who don't have the financial resources to get free legal advice, and so this is a chance for them to do that. However, many of you know we have a significant population in the county who does not speak English. And I just want to mention that Attorney Jeremiah Harrelson and Attorney Shirlene Perrin, both of whom are fluent Spanish-speaking persons, and the primary interpreter used, Monica Marin, have sponsored a workshop November 20th at a church in River Falls so that Spanish-speaking people can get some free legal advice. I just want to thank them publicly. That's it.
And I appreciate Judge Black's efforts in coordinating that and getting that established, and he is absolutely correct that the number of non-English speakers that we have in our courts continues to grow. Last week we had a Mongolian person who was in custody, and trust me, finding a Mongolian interpreter was a little challenging, but again, Christy Severson and her staff in the clerk's office do a fantastic job in identifying and having those folks assist us. So Spanish speakers obviously are our biggest population, and so this hopefully will provide some information. Ms. Garrity.
Judge, will that continue repetitive once, or is it just this once? Will this just be once, or will it keep going?
Right now, just a one time, but I'm hoping if we get more volunteers, we can do it more often.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? We certainly welcome Amber Hahn, our newest member to the council. I showed her the secret handshake before we began, and so I think she's all ready to go. And I believe we also have her assigned to one of our subcommittees. So we welcome Amber. She's, as I said, when we voted on her inclusion last month, started here as an ADA, went to the Attorney General's office in Madison, came back to Dunn County initially, and then St. Croix for a brief stint, and now she is an assistant district attorney in Fond du Lac County, correct? Correct. That's right. Working remotely, obviously. I don't think she commutes every day. With that said, let's move into our business items. First, I'm going to recognize Liesl Nelson. Liesl is one of our longtime assistant public defenders, serves primarily the population in Pierce County, but also serves on our treatment court as a very valuable member of that team. And she has asked an opportunity to recognize one of my colleagues, Judge Waterman, for his service to treatment court. Ms. Nelson.
Thank you, Judge. I'm here this morning representing quite a few former and current treatment court members, and I've been given the honor to take a few moments this morning to thank Judge Waterman for his many years of service as the assigned judge to our St. Croix treatment court. This recognition is long overdue. Sometimes waiting for the right moment to say thank you makes it harder and harder to find the right moment. So, Judge, thank you so much for your patience in our getting to this today. For those of you who do not know, Judge Waterman became the assigned St. Croix Treatment Court judge in 2016, and he served in that role for 5 years until Judge Nordstrand took over assignment of the court in 2021. During those 5 years, Judge Waterman significantly advanced the interests of the treatment court. He attended a great deal of training with the team. He improved our processes and improved the operation of the court. He led the creation of a second track, which expanded our treatment court for a brief period of time to folks who had felony drunk driving convictions. That took a significant amount of work. Unfortunately, because of legislative reasons, we weren't able to continue it, but a lot of work was poured into that. He was also the assigned treatment court judge when COVID hit, which meant that the court was suddenly forced to figure out how to carry on virtually and to continue to provide support and accountability to our participants whose stability and recovery was substantially impacted by the shutdown. During his time assigned to the court, Judge Waterman was known for his ability to connect and communicate with our participants. This included a seemingly natural capacity for motivational interviewing skills, as well as a consistent demonstration of respect and compassion for the participants who appeared before him. For those of you who don't know, motivational interviewing is a counseling approach that's designed to help people find the motivation to make positive behavior change. It posits that people have the strength and ability to grow and change, even if past attempts at change have failed. Motivational interviewing is difficult. It's really difficult. And in order to do it well, it takes a lot of work and preparation and practice. And Judge Waterman always did it exceptionally well and continues to do it exceptionally well. He fills in occasionally for Judge Nordstrand when Judge Nordstrand is not available. And it's always remarkable to me that essentially watching him work with participants is a master class in motivational interviewing, connecting with them, helping them find the reasons that they can change. I think that his abilities in this area have a lot to do with not only his ability to believe in others' capacities for change, but his willingness to help them start to believe in themselves and their capacity for change. It was always apparent during treatment court sessions that Judge Waterman put a great deal of thought and effort into his interactions with participants, and in exchange, he gets exceptional results. Participants are able to form with him what's called a therapeutic alliance, and they form that alliance as well with the treatment court team. And it allows participants to align their interests with the treatment court team so that we can pursue common goals in recovery and over time help them make great strides in changing their behavior. Judge Waterman was also very well respected by the multidisciplinary team that worked with him. That team included treatment court coordinators, law enforcement, treatment providers, probation agents, defense attorneys, and prosecutors. And let me tell you, when you can get that group of people to work together seamlessly, you're doing something right. During Judge Waterman's tenure on the treatment court, many lives were positively impacted. Our county is beyond fortunate to have multiple judges who's not only been trained in evidence-based practice and treatment court principles, but are also willing to take leadership in these collaborative approaches that positively affect not only the participants who are in our treatment courts, but our entire community as well. When individuals are able to achieve long-term recovery from their substance use, the impacts have very far-reaching effects to their families, their employers, law enforcement, the recovery community. Children are reunited with parents, relationships and families are rebuilt, housing becomes more stable, taxes get paid, money is saved, and negative impacts on the community decline. We, as a team, are forever grateful to Judge Waterman for his willingness to serve in the role of treatment court judge and provide us with outstanding leadership in this effort for so many years. So with that, Judge, if you would come up, we have something pretty to put in your office to remind you of all the hard work that you did. I'll just read the inscription on this. It says, "What a man does for himself dies with him. What a man does for his community lives long after he is gone." Very much. Thank you, Judge.
I am humbled. I am really touched by this recognition, and to have some of my former teammates come to court here to recognize this day with me. As I was driving in, I was reflecting on my time on the treatment court and how it all began. And I remember in 2015, Judge Vlack and Judge Needham approached me and see if I'd be interested in getting involved with the treatment court, with eventually taking it over in a year or two after Judge Vleck had stepped off. And I was very reluctant to get involved in treatment court, I'll be honest with you. I did not have a history with addiction or with recovery. I was a new judge, and I was still learning how to be a judge, let alone a treatment court judge. And this added task seemed daunting. And I had spent most of my career working as a lawyer for insurance companies. Treatment court helps people. And what does a insurance lawyer know about helping people? So the task seemed overwhelming to me, but despite those reservations, I did get involved. And I'm glad I did, because it by far was the best professional assignment I've ever had. Most of the people that we see coming through the justice system have addiction issues, serious addiction issues. And the mission of the treatment court is to help those people with their addictions, to improve their lives and deliver quality services so that they can live more happy and productive lives. And I was able to take that work from the treatment court and apply it to my regular work as a judge. And I couldn't have done it without having gone through treatment court and being supported by my teammates. I think a lot of times awards like this are not deserved for judges, because the real work of the treatment court is done by the team, a dedicated team of 6 or 7 professionals, exceptional individuals who really pour their heart and soul into this work. They work long hours. They hold their participants, their clients' hands at times. They help them, they encourage them, they hold them accountable. And they frequently do it in long hours, oftentimes after working hours. It's hard work. And the real credit to the success of the treatment court belongs to them, because they're the ones who really do the work. But thank you for this recognition. I really appreciate it.
I know I speak on behalf of all the judges as well as other staff in appreciating Judge Waterman's service to treatment court. And I recall when Judge Vleck and I approached him, his eyes were not only wide open, but he was shaking his head, not in the affirmative, but with a lot of persuasion, and recognizing the talents that we knew he'd bring to the position. Has certainly done yeoman's service and continues in a variety of other ways to support the efforts of treatment court, as well as this body and the courts in general. Treatment court updates. Kate Brewer is here. I wish I could say Judge Nordstrand is here, but he's on the beach someplace warm. He told me the other day that the water temperature is 84 degrees, and so here we are. Kate.
He sure is. All right, just a few things. So treatment court, we have rolled out our new case management app that's Reconnect. We have started inputting our current participants, so they are wiggling around with that. That is going to track all of treatment court obligations for them and for us. So all their drug testing, their work hours, sober support meetings, questions for our team will go all directly to their texts, so that the whole team can see what questions they are asking us. Their treatment check-ins, and it's going to help with GPS location, making sure they're actually going to these meetings, and instead of maybe putting a GPS device on them, we can pay a little extra cost to have them be tracked 24/7 if they have their phone with them. But it is actually saving us money than putting that on, so it's very helpful in their first phases just to keep them accountable for that. So we are rolling that out. The next announcement is that I will be off on maternity leave starting around the 1st. So we will have Phil and our treatment court case manager, Kayla, filling in. So any treatment court questions will go to the two of them. Our last is we are trying to find a better way right now, again, to get substance abuse assessments while our people are in custody. We are running into the problem of when we have referrals that are on DOC holds, are held on bond, they're in the jail. Behavioral health before had a social worker that was also had a license to do these assessments for us. They were great and were doing courtesy assessments for us. She has now taken a different position. The new social worker does not possess that license to do our assessments. So we are back at square one, whether we need to get a court order or we also contract with Programs for Change to do these assessments. The problem is that Programs for Change does not have a telehealth license and they will not come into the jail to do them. The second problem is that all of these people in custody have lost their insurance while they're in custody. So they will have to pay a $400 fee for these. So we have been in talks this week, hopefully with behavioral health, to see what we can wiggle around, just because we do need these assessments to make them eligible, and we do want these outcomes to see if they're eligible for treatment court before sentencing, before their DOC revocation hearings, and that. So that is just one of our hurdles right now in treatment court.
Thank you. Any questions of Kate about treatment court? Yeah.
I think my microphone thank you, perfect. So Kate, that would be something that I think we may be able to provide some support with at Western Wisconsin Health. We do have a tele-license. We do have the appropriate personnel to do that. Obviously, we'd have to work out funding if there's no insurance, but let's connect on how to help make that happen.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That, again, is what this group is all about, is finding connections and coming up with solutions. Any other questions of Kate about treatment court? What's their current numbers, Kate?
13, and we have a pretty good referral list, and they're looking, a lot of them are eligible currently. So.
TAD grant, Lisa Maltoff.
Good morning. So Phil, Kate, and I are deep into writing the TAD grant for 2024 right now. It's due next Thursday. 2024 will be the third year of a five-year funding cycle. So 2026 will be when it will become competitive again. For those that are not aware, TAD is the Treatment Alternatives and Diversion grant that we received from the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Almost every county in the state receives TAD grant funding. It's almost $10 million worth of funding. Our county receives $238,689 from the state, with $59,672 of that being our county cash match. So with the funding, Kate's position and my position are our cash match for St. Croix County. And then the grant funds 2.5 positions that are essential to both programs. The diversion case management specialist and the treatment court case manager. And then we also have a TAD project data entry specialist who's split between both programs, so it's 12 hours for each program that enters the data that's essential to the TAD project, and that position has a specific software system that they put all of that data into that goes directly to the state. The goals and objectives of TAD are to reduce recidivism rates for nonviolent offenders in the program and increase public safety and reduce prison and jail populations by diverting nonviolent offenders to community-based interventions. So treatment court and diversion are both accomplishing that, and we've been receiving TAD since 2014.
Questions of Lisa or Phil about the TAD grant? I remember when the state initiated that program, I think there were less than 10 counties initially that received TAD grants. It grew, and now we're to that point again of almost every county receiving. However, this probably doesn't come as a surprise. The amount of funding, while it's increased, has not increased exponentially with the number of counties. So the next cycle in 2 years, I think, is going to be extremely competitive in terms of the dollars available and who may receive them. So I really appreciate the work of Lisa and Phil and Kate and others who keep us on the forefront and get those applications in and maintain these programs. So thank you for that. Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions. I did want to mention too also that the CJCC is the oversight body for this grant, so it is very helpful to be able to talk about it here.
Thank you. Phil.
Thank you, Judge. So for justice support, I just want to talk a little bit about our drug testing expansion. So we have been, some ARPA dollars were reallocated through the county board for expanding or re-envisioning drug testing here in St. Croix for justice involved and family cases. So starting in 2024, we'll have the option for individuals to test in New Richmond. So that project is beginning. I'm not quite sure if construction has begun, but at the services center, I don't know, Bob. Okay, hasn't. And Bob's not responsible for that. But the services center, room 156, is the space that will become the new drug testing location. But sometime January, February, we anticipate having our substance screener up there at least 2 days a week. We're not quite sure exactly what that looks like, but you know, we do know that roughly 50% of the folks that we test live in the New Richmond area, and so I think this just makes a lot of sense. There will be some logistical, I think, hurdles for us as far as when our tester is in New Richmond, there won't be anyone here, and vice versa, days and times. So just bear with us as we try to figure out the schedule that's going to work best for treatment court, diversion, pretrial, and then our CPS cases. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions of Phil about justice support? As he said, we're looking at expanding testing for our families, primarily in child protection cases, but that brings with it a whole set of challenges given the confidentiality and other things that go along with those cases as compared to the other population that Phil is currently testing. So again, we appreciate the help of behavioral health and child protection, everyone else, in trying to navigate and hopefully come up with a means to test those parents who, by and large, most of our kids out of home are out of home because mom and dad are addicts or alcoholics. And so we, again, are hopeful we can come up with some means by which to test. Anything else from Justice Support? Matt grant update. We're pleased to have Tim Kufus, one of our administrators in the Sheriff's Department, and Tim apparently has taken on the reins of Kathy Borchatz, who started this program, so we welcome Deputy Kufus.
Thank you very much. The update that I have for Matt is that it is moving in a forward and positive direction. We have 3 inmates that are currently receiving medications with an anticipated 4th starting this week or next week. We have 2 inmates that are former inmates that started services in the jail that have transitioned to receiving services through behavioral health, with a 3rd anticipated this week or next. Scheduling is just being done right now. Funding is good through October of 24, and recently we have requested a modification for more grant funds to increase some of our capabilities, including telehealth in the jail, which I think would help some of these things that have already been brought up, as well as AOD, or increase in AODA assessments. So I think there's some crossover benefits that will be seen, and I'm optimistic that we will be receiving those funds. So, any questions?
Any questions of? Thank you. And I have one of those folks who transitioned out of the jail and into the community who's continuing that treatment. In fact, got a letter from him the other day telling me how beneficial that's been to him. So to you and the sheriff and former Chief Deputy Borchatz, so we really appreciate that initiative, and Phil and everyone else who got that up and running. But like any grant, we know it's going to run out, and then we have to put on our thinking caps and figure out, is this sustainable, and is the cost-benefit analysis appropriate to maintain it. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I asked, or I shouldn't say the executive committee asked Sean Kinsella to also join us to give us an update on CASA. It's been in place, I believe, about 2 years, and I thought it would be beneficial to have him come and chat with us about how the program's going, number of volunteers, and anything else that he may wish to share. We also have, I know, some members of the board here, as well as at least one CASA advocate, passionate about her work, that being Yvonne Larson. So, Mr. Kinsella.
Thank you very much. I'm always excited to talk about CASA. I think it's a great program. If you don't know, CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. It is a volunteer-powered organization, and we recruit adults who have a passion for the well-being of children, and we partner them and pair them with a child that is in the CPS system that's been adjudicated to be in need of protection. We ask those volunteers to meet with the child about an hour a week, or the child's team. That could also include that, and we ask them to follow the child for a year. We have, it was February last year that we started. When I came in, we had 2 advocates. Since then, we've grown it to 20, and we continue to grow this year, but as we grow, we're having some of our seniors are stepping away due to health issues. So we haven't actually increased our true numbers that are there, but I think we're going to get over that hump. We have a training group that's in training right now, and another one that's ready to go in 2 weeks. So we believe that we'll hit our goal, which was to recruit 20 additional volunteers by the end of the year. The average age of the children that we're supporting are 12 to 13. We can support children 18 months to 18 years. Ideally, it is about 7 years or older when the children probably benefit the most from a CASA. Prior to that, it's much more about developmental steps and milestones that a child's hit, and long as they're in a safe place. Our numbers so far are showing that about 78% of the cases that we're involved with are due to addiction, alcohol and crystal meth being the predominant ones, which means about 22% of the cases then fall into the realm of abuse, cruelty, rape, things like in that nature. So we're excited to continue to move forward. We're always looking for volunteers that might want to get involved. Our goal eventually is really to increase to about 50 adults, and that would allow us to serve roughly about 75 children that it would be in the system. So we've closed that gap quite nicely in this past year, and I'm confident that next year will be just as fruitful. Any questions?
Sean, what's the training program?
Yeah. So the training program really is about training the adults how to do interviews, because they're going out and they're reviewing documents and they're talking with everyone that revolves around that child, gathering that information and then consolidate it into a report that they turn over to the court. We try and produce those reports now every 2 months so that everybody in the court system knows exactly what's happening. The adults go through about 30 hours of online training, and then they come and observe in court. And then we also do vignette training that is in person. So we bring everyone together. And CASA is a national program. They've taken excerpts from their live cases and diluted them and then made them really ambiguous so that people's personal beliefs and value systems can come out and penetrate that case, and then you're able to talk about it. It's actually a really great experience. And then I think also bringing the special advocates in to actually observe court and how that plays out is really the most valuable piece. The impressions that they have and they talk about are really amazing. I wish there was a way that we could always capture that and share that, because I think, you know, you're talking about a very tough situation and parents who've usually engaged in some kind of behavior that's led to the court being involved. But I think there's a lot of compassion that comes out for those parents too. It's not true judgment of the parents. So That's our process. It takes about 2 months to get them trained.
What's the breakdown between men and women and as volunteers?
So currently we have one male. We've lost several of our male members to illness. And we have 3 in the pipe to come on. So it is, what would that be? About 15% are men, and the rest are females.
Sean, I know, is willing to go talk to anyone about this program, so if anyone here believes that, his offering conversation, at your church, other civic organization that you may be involved in, I would certainly encourage you to get a hold of Sean and to connect with him. I think we also certainly have to be mindful and thankful to the county board and Ken Witt and the department and everyone else who has stepped up and supported this program and really gotten it off the ground. The county provides in-kind support, offices. The new build-out is going to even have a greater office space, a child play area for CASA. And then as of Tuesday night, the county board also approved some significant financial support to CASA this year and next year. And so through Chairman Long and Vice Chair Fiedler and Ken Witt and Mr. Telejohn and any other county board member who's here today, I can't express in loud enough terms the thanks that program, as well as the courts who benefit from this. And again, Judge Waterman, Judge Black are here. The reports we get from CASA are insightful, and this is not a criticism of the workers. Their ability to triage and to work with these kids and families is spread out over caseloads, I think 40 or so per worker. And so we really get an insight as to what's happening in the day-to-day with these kids and the reports that we're getting. Also, if you want to hear a real-life story, talk to Yvonne Larson. She talked to county board on Tuesday night, talked to executive committee a week or so ago. And when I say passionate, that is probably an understatement regarding her love of not only what she's doing, but I believe support for the program. So any other questions or comments about CASA? Yes, Ms. Avalos.
I'm also a CASA board member, and I also wanted to say thank you to any of you who are on the board who helped with the funding for this. It's been a lot of work to get this off the ground, but there are a lot of very enthusiastic people who care deeply about this cause, and it is really encouraging when you are involved in a program that is out there to help the community and the children in it, to see that the community is involved and is supportive. And so I just want to say, as a board member, thank you very much. Also, thank you to Judge Waterman for working with us and helping to implement a lot of the procedures that are in place to help these kids. So thank you.
Yes, Mr. Telejohn.
Just a comment that CASA is presenting at our church in Richmond on Sunday, so it just happens to be that we're going to be hearing CASA present.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Thank you, Sean.
You bet.
System map presentation. I think I know what it means, but Shelby Hilden is going to enlighten all of us as to the work that she's been doing with system map tracing. And so, Shelby, first why don't you identify yourself in terms of position and then lead us through your work.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Shelby Hilden. I'm the Pretrial Services Program Supervisor here for St. Croix County. Justice Services has been participating as a targeted technical assistance site with Advancing Pretrial Policy and Research and the Center for Effective Public Policy, and our partners guided us through a system mapping project for St. Croix County. I want to start by thanking all the departments that took the time over the last few months to correspond with us over email, meet one-on-one, and also attend our system map finalization open house. By nature of this work, we work in silos, so it's really wonderful to be able to bring all stakeholders to the table to discuss not only the intricacies of each department, but also it gives us the ability to sit back and look at our system as a whole. And system mapping can really be useful because it helps us to assess and identify any gaps or potential improvements. And I do want to acknowledge that this was previously done here in 2017. However, this map looks quite different, and it'll be important to continue to update this map when any changes occur in the future. I specifically included in this version potential exits of the criminal justice system. So as you can see in the green circles, those are potential exits of the criminal justice system. And I also nicely color-coded this for you guys, because I'm a visual person. So blue is indicating a law enforcement-related process or decision point, orange is within the jail, and so on and so forth. I wish I could fit this all in one page, but that's about impossible. So I'll just scan over it here, and then if anybody is interested in looking at it later, you can contact myself or Dr. Gali for a copy. Along with this system map, you'll see that each of the decision points and processes here are numbered. So along with this, we have a narrative document that goes into a little bit of description on each of these pieces. Since we completed this in September, it's already been very useful in educating staff about processes. I really believe that we're going to use this in future staff training, and we've discussed once the building renovation is done and we're in our new space, blowing this up and putting this up on the wall in justice services. A lot of what we do in pretrial is helping folks navigate through the criminal justice system. So what better way than to have a map up on the wall for them to look at and see. Further, this can provide us a really great template for future data collection so we can continue to assess and improve upon our system. I should point out that this is an overview of our system here in St. Croix County, and I think a potential future direction here would be to do detailed submaps of different departments. So for instance, a probation submap, a treatment court submap, a diversion submap, things of that nature so we can continue to have a better understanding of them. Does anyone have any questions?
So Shelby, as I understand, starting on the far left would be where someone enters the criminal justice system.
Yes, correct. Thank you. Yeah. So this starts with law enforcement. Criminal activity could be detected, could be reported, and then we also decided to note in here I believe it's called the dark figure of crime. There's criminal activity that happens, but it never gets reported or followed through on. Going through with a law enforcement response, investigation, development of probable cause, and then potentially bringing a person into the jail, and so on and so forth.
So for those not familiar with the system, I think it certainly shows all the intersection points along that continuum between before or with someone entering the system, and then at the far right, you know, the outcomes that at least are available. I assume it's obviously prison, jail, Department of Corrections, through probation, treatment court, but it's a valuable tool and one, again, that not only Justice Support will use, but I trust probably many other stakeholders in the system just to identify what are those decision points, what are those points along the continuum where we may be able to offer some improvement or ideas about interventions or other outcomes. So any questions of Shelby about this work?
Yeah, I do, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks great. I want to calculate the average cost per outcome on there. But could you maybe just run through a generic scenario to show us how it flows through?
Sure. So starting at the beginning here, for instance, we could have somebody that's charged with a disorderly conduct, so a misdemeanor criminal crime. The law enforcement could respond, there could be an investigation. If there were a domestic aspect to it, they may do additional threat assessments. Law enforcement then would have to develop probable cause in order to continue with a criminal case. If no probable cause was found, of course, the person would be released and essentially exit the criminal justice system. Moving on to jail, the person could get booked into jail. They're held in jail for up to 48 hours without seeing a judge. And then in this instance, this would be a misdemeanor crime as well, so they could reference the misdemeanor bond schedule to determine if the person would be or bail schedule, I'm sorry, to determine if the person would be eligible to be released, and then released to their own recognizance, or maybe have to post a cash bond. So let's say we reference the bail schedule. This person has a disorderly conduct, they have no criminal history, they have ties to the community, they may not be required to post bond to get out of jail. They might simply be booked and released. Well, just because they're booked and released doesn't mean that their case doesn't continue. They go to their initial appearance out of custody, usually the following day. If they were to fail to appear for this initial appearance out of custody, they could potentially get a warrant issued. Another sub-process that I included in here is a stayed warrant. So essentially the person could have another chance to appear in court. But let's say that this person completes their initial appearance and bond is set. Several things can happen here. They can get a cash bond and either be able to post it or not post it, or a signature bond, or it could be pled down to an ordinance, or certainly the case could be dismissed. I added in here additional steps for whether or not folks are compliant with bond conditions. So in close relation to what we do in pretrial services with monitoring levels, check-ins, drug testing, GPS, things like that. If a person is non-compliant with those release conditions, there are a few different options for where we could go from there. Oops. Next, we get up to the gray boxes, which is essentially the court decisions and processes here. I have a different line here for felony and misdemeanor cases. And the one that we're talking about, it's a misdemeanor case, so there wouldn't be a preliminary hearing to establish probable cause. If there was a prelim, there's certainly the possibility that probable cause is not found and that person would exit the system. Moving on towards a plea, you have a not guilty plea. If the person did plead not guilty, they could move on towards a court trial or a jury trial. If they pled guilty, they could also be offered diversion or deferred prosecution. Now, if they are looking at a diversion opportunity, they would also have a compass assessment done prior to that. So that's added in as a sub-process. So let's say this person is awarded diversion and they are not successful with a part of their diversion program. Their agreement could be revoked and then they could potentially go back to sentencing. And then generally speaking here, we have the options after sentencing: jail, fines or fees, treatment court, probation, parole. You'll note that I connected each of these four up here, because you can have a combination of these. And then, of course, after prison, somebody is automatically going to go back onto parole. Lastly, this is very generally speaking, if somebody were to violate their sentencing conditions, they go back into the criminal justice system. But if they're successful with their sentencing conditions, they exit with the opportunity for expungement. Sorry, that was probably way too detailed.
Any other questions of Shelby? Yep.
So I kind of put Shelby up to this. I'm glad that she was willing to take it on because she did a really great job. This is a lot of work, a lot of time spent, and several iterations of this. Can you talk, excuse me, a little bit about some of the improvements that we found going through this process?
Sure. Notably during our open house, where we were able to bring stakeholders to the table to all discuss this in one place, we talked about, similar to what we talked about just earlier this morning, getting a person to their initial appearance can take time, and it's especially difficult to navigate when there's a need for interpreter services. So language barriers can have a significant effect on the case moving throughout the system at any point throughout the system. We also noted how missed court appearances present a significant burden not only to the individual's case's timeliness, but also to all stakeholders involved. So not only is that case essentially put on pause if a person fails to appear, it affects so many departments. So if a warrant's issued that involves the clerk's office, district attorney's office, the judge has to sign the warrant, dispatch enters the warrant, law enforcement goes out and arrests the person, the jail books them in and houses them. So we noted how something as simple as a missed court appearance can really affect a lot of people. And we also noted that how everyone plays a role, and it's really great here in St. Croix County to have so many different individualized options for people in the system. So some people may be best suited to diversion or treatment court or probation, and it's just really great to have those options to kind of best fit the individual and their circumstances to set them up for success long term.
Any other questions? Yes, Pastor Thompson.
Is it possible for that computer file that she has there to be sent out to all of us?
The answer is yes.
Okay,
Thank you. The only thing I'll offer is that, you know, in this room, I think the majority of us have some form of higher education. Now think of a 17-year-old who's been arrested on a crime, or someone with mental health entering at the far left and then trying to navigate their way to the far right. I mean, it's overwhelming, and you know, the steps for us make sense. They're logical, they're sequential, but as I said, for those in the system who have that emotional tie to whatever they've done or not done, it is overwhelming. So I think this really helps Shelby in trying to lay it out, and maybe even for defense attorneys, you know, to have, you know, laminated copies to just help that client understand, you know, this is where we start, this is where we're going to end up, and all the steps in between. So thank you for this work, and it's obviously ongoing. Anything else? Great. Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you.
Executive Committee also asked the Sheriff Knutson to talk to us about Huber. Again, many of us in the room have a pretty, I think, sound understanding as to what it is, but I think there's also a fair percentage of those here today who have heard it but really don't know what it is or how it works. So we thought the Sheriff could provide kind of an overview.
I'll get there. Thank you. Yeah, there's always been some question on not only what is Huber, but how it's evolved over the years. EHM getting brought in, electronic home monitoring, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit. Historical, 1913 Senator Henry Huber introduced that, and it became a mechanism for those that were eligible after conviction or serving conditional time after conviction to get out and continue their employment, pay for bills, in some cases handle family issues. Sometimes there's a single parent, and that single parent ends up in jail who takes care of the kids. So there are avenues and ways during serving of sentence to get out of the jail. Wisconsin Statute 303.08 kind of goes through items that the person could be eligible to get out for. When I started, I'm a historical guy, and I always go back to when I started in 1996. There was 4 Huber dorms, 8 in each dorm. The jail was built in 1993. This current one, Huber, through my time in the jail in the late 90s, filled up. 3 of those dorms were for males, and 1 of them was for females. And it became so full over the years that in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a push to expand Huber dorms, which is that expansion which came off of the south end of the building, and that would eventually house the day report center as well. So all of that was added on and opened up in 2002. Huber continued to grow, but not at the pace that was anticipated. Currently, we have 13 in Huber and 5 out on EHM. So there's 18 really in that program. So kind of as the process goes, once somebody is convicted, they have to meet the courts, they have to be eligible. You'll see down on probably number 2 at the very bottom. If the person, unless such privilege is expressly granted by the court, person subject to confinement, he's sentenced to ordinary confinement. So somebody needs to be allowed for one of these reasons to go out. And some may not have a job at the time, but we'll try to find them a job. We have a person that is assigned to the Huber dorm. Again, because it got so big, late 90s, early 2000s, we actually had 2 deputies that were assigned. One of the reasons we had 2 deputies assigned was we didn't have GPS at the time. So part of getting out on Huber, they're allowed to get out 6 days, up to 6 days a week, up to 12 hours each of those days. The rest of the time, they needed to be back into the jail. So they would buzz in the morning, out to work, they'd have to have their schedules in, they go out, do their job, they have to go directly to work and from. No stops in between, no fraternization, no stopping at home. Job sites, work sites, sometimes job sites moved, construction. So part of the duties before GPS, those 2 deputies went out and checked on people at their work. So it wasn't uncommon for, at a construction site, a deputy to come walking in, is so-and-so here today? They would make contact with them. Yep, you're here, you're where you're supposed to be, and we'd go on to the next place. Which is, again, why we needed more people to do that. Some of the things that were always confining, so to speak, to some of those restrictions were not everybody that is serving lives in St. Croix County or works in St. Croix County when the initial crimes were committed or, again, with their work. So we always had that, here we go at the river, somebody that's traveling through or on the Apple River, for example, and all of a sudden they're on Huber, they live in Minneapolis, they work in Minneapolis, that always posed a problem. Sorry, you have to give up your construction job on the west side of the cities, find something in St. Croix County. All right, so that did pose a problem. GPS has helped some of that, but I'll get into some of the other issues we have now as time has passed. This person goes out, their jobs, back in. Some of the other unique things is childcare. I mentioned that early on. They can also get out just for family and childcare. So they would go out in the morning, go home with the family, but it has to be, the statute used to read, I think as we dug through, Heather and I, it used to be for childcare. Now it's for family, I don't have my glasses on, but it is for the needs of the person's family under partway down, third of the way down. So they changed up that because we kind of got into some discussions of which family member, what if there's another family member there? Should this be the only family member there that can take care of? What if there's somebody else that can? If there is somebody else, does that mean they can't get out? So we've been kind of discussing some of those things, working through. And Huber, I think, is very beneficial, again, for the continued employment of people, to continue to pay their, you don't want people to go into bankruptcy or can't make house payments while serving their time. So I think it's very, very good. There are some counties that strictly do EHM, electronic home monitoring, and I think Pierce County is one of them that doesn't even have a Huber dorm. Everybody goes out to EHM. How we do it here is somebody gets Huber and we have them do the traditional Huber. Sleep here at night, out to work during the day. We do that for about 30 days. During that time, we see if they're able to follow the rules and be respectful of staff. If they're not following the rules in their in and out, they're coming back late, Some may come back and test positive because when they go out and come back, we do test them on their way back in. They do urine tests. Everybody's strip search coming in, make sure they're not bringing any contraband in. That's another challenge that we have because people come out and there are more opportunities to bring contraband into the jail if they're going back 6 days a week. That's somebody coming back into the facility that could bring in some drugs, swallow some drugs, and then pass it in the Huber dorms, which people do. Then all of a sudden they have dope inside. That is a challenge. So as COVID hit, that changed a lot of things because now people are in and out 6 times a week, making many more opportunities, not for contraband only, but now to bring in if somebody gets sick. And we were concerned, like many places were, of that constant in and out. So then we started to go to and look at the electronic home monitoring. And you have to think of electronic home monitoring as their home becomes really an extension of the jail and the jail cell. So if somebody has electronic home monitoring, there's a number of rules. There's pages of rules to go through. And it's really because it's an extension of the sheriff's custody. We'll go in prior to an approval on electronic home monitoring, and we search their house for drugs, weapons, some things that they may violate, or sit at home and again, because we never had electronic home monitoring, allowing that placement at home prior to drug testing was really just a crapshoot. You had to trust that the person wasn't sitting at home all day, or quite frankly, leaving during the day, because we didn't have the staff to check on them 24/7. So that's why electronic home monitoring, or home monitoring, I should say, was never really utilized prior to ankle bracelets. Ankle bracelets kick in, then it's, all right, let's give this a try. So not everybody that gets Huber gets electronic home monitoring, because some are not always following the rules, but more so we also look at where that might be. I won't put somebody on electronic home monitoring on the west side of the cities. That doesn't make sense because I can't get over there, and if they violate or abscond, how do I get them back? You know, I got the border. I can't just have our deputy go over and pick them up because they violated outside of their work zone, and then just bring them back. There's lots of challenges to that. So we do try to keep them close. There are exceptions close across the river. Again, they have to follow a number of rules. And many that are serving don't have licenses. There are violations where they need a ride. So if they are the traditional Huber in and out, their drivers need to be on file with us. They need to have insurance, completely valid. So we also need to know who's picking them up and dropping them off from work. For, again, back in the 90s, early 2000s, many Hubers worked in Hudson and just walked to work. There's so many that you would see walking up and down Carmichael. With the electronic home monitoring, now that's widened that gap. I'll talk about one of the challenges we had a couple weeks ago. Not to get too deep into it because I'm not sure which judge has it. But now since Minnesota allows marijuana, the house we searched was full of marijuana and paraphernalia across the river. Well, it's legal here. Well, it's not legal in Wisconsin, and it's not legal for the inmate to be in a house full of it. So there were those challenges of something in another state that is not illegal, keeping that person in line. So we got the house cleaned out, all good to go, and I think the first test we did on the person, they came back positive. So back into the jail they went. So that is the challenge of putting somebody that may have a substance abuse issue back into an environment where the substances are. So we want to make sure that they are successful, but also that they're not reoffending in some form out there. So that is going to be a challenge, and that was one that I called Heather on, and we talked about that one at length of maneuvering through the changing times. Now with the electronic monitoring bracelets, it is much easier to, we go with Sun Monitoring. It's a private company. They come in, they hook people up every Thursday. It's $20 a day. The county board, we did a resolution several years ago where we charge the inmate what the county gets charged. So county's not making, we're not in this for the revenue. And if you make it too much, people can't afford to go out. So it has to be something reasonable as well. So it's just, we'll just do what the county is charged. That's what the inmate pays. So they monitor that, and technology has become so much better that the GPS, they can set up to and from routes from work, from treatment. If they deviate that, the alarms go off. They have it down to such a point where here's the house, you can't even go in the yard. You can't go mowing. You have to stay in your house, in the jail cell, so to speak. If they violate that, the alarm goes off. They are told to report back, or we go pick them up. We had, I think, a violation the other day. They're also tamper-proof. So if somebody tries to peel it off, put something in between it, if they don't charge their battery, that's also another one of the rules. You must charge your battery. They're given, the bracelet will tell you, hey, you've got 2 hours left and the battery's dead. So it's not just, oh geez, it died, I didn't know it. You're notified all the way along. And if it goes dead, we go pick them up, that's a violation. Violations, when we pull people back in, depending upon the violation, I can keep them back in jail off of Huber for up to 5 days. Kind of like a ticket. Then they can go back out. If it's something such as a drug violation or committing a new crime, got into a battery, got into a road rage, got into whatever, we will then petition the court to have their Huber revoked. So then it goes back up to the court, since it was the court allowing them Huber. The process starts to try to have that removed. If they can't follow the rules out there, or they become dangerous to the public, or substance abuse continued issues, we don't want them out there. They can come back into the jail. So. I don't know if I'll ever get to the, like Pierce County did, no Huber. I still think there's a place for Huber, I should say a Huber facility. I still think there's a place for a Huber facility. I don't think we're at that, because that is also a leap of faith of if they can follow the rules. The other thing we look at when we talk about public safety, if, for instance, somebody has a domestic abuse, they're serving on that, me allowing them to go back into the residence on electronic home monitoring where the victim is, I won't do that. There could be Huber where they go and stay somewhere else, but or a neighbor dispute that got violent. I personally don't think it's fair to the neighbor victim to look out their window and see their perpetrator right there serving his time. That's why I think there is a component for incarceration in some cases. So that was kind of a lot of all over. Any questions?
There was a time when the GPS hookups happened on a particular day of the week. So we always tried to time some of the Huber sentencings, on a Thursday or a Tuesday to match up with the hookup. Are you still doing it once per week, or are there multiple days when prisoners can be outfitted with the GPS device?
We still do it once per week. I believe it's on Thursdays. And the reason we don't do it more is that Sun Monitoring is a 2 or 3 person show, and they have a number of counties. So Thursday, I think they take care of us in Pierce. They also take care of Barron. They have like 10 counties. So each day they pop to a different county. Ours just happens to be Thursday. I think we have a few replacement ones for emergency that Naomi may be able to hook up, but, or I shouldn't say hook up, replace. So if somebody's goes bad, and it's electronics, something could happen. And if it's no fault of the inmate, that person serving, I think Naomi can switch them out. But for the initial hookup, we want to make sure Sun Monitoring, they also have a set of rules. This is what we expect, this is what we will check. The exclusion and inclusion zones are all given to Sun Monitoring on that Thursday. They enter everything in. Actually, they get that in advance, so it's all entered in. It's just the hookup, sign the rules, and then they're off. So.
Questions, yes.
Can they receive non-urgent medical care while out on Huber?
Yes, and that's also part of one of the things that someone may get out on EHM that could potentially even be serving a sentence, maybe not even necessarily able for Huber. But if on Huber, one of the things when people, oftentimes we get hey, I can't serve because I have this medical condition. I can't serve because I'm on these medications. I turn all that over to the medical provider within the jail. Can we handle this inmate? And there are several times where they say, no, we can't. So they'll go home right away, because we don't want to worsen any conditions. And if somebody has appointments, therapy, there was one not too long ago that, hey, I've got therapy 4 times a week. Probably easier if you're at home because just of how things are set up in the jail. I had one that was immunocompromised. I can't be in, and this was 2021, 2022, and I'm like, well, I don't want you getting deathly ill in the confines of the jail. So there are those exceptions. If they're out, yes, they can go to the hospital. They just need to, again, non-emergent, let Sun Monitoring know. Part of their rules, if it's emergent, we'll find out that it truly was, and no violation. People just have to make sure they take care of themselves and keep us informed.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Would the same apply for outpatient substance use disorder treatment?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Avalos.
Just piggybacking a little off that question, not on home monitoring, but just if they're in Huber. I know there are certain medications that can be administered in the jail and certain that cannot. So if you have an inmate who is on a medication that can't be administered in the jail, and they're not on home monitoring, but just on Huber, can they take that medication while they're out on Huber? Or are they not allowed to have it in their system when they're in the jail?
Correct, and the things that are really not allowed are the narcotic ones.
Okay.
We try through the medical provider to find an equivalent.
Yeah.
But yeah, even if they're out, and part of the rules is no non-prescribed drugs or prohibited narcotics, even prescribed on the outside. If it's a narcotic that'll cause issues in here, then no.
Can they maintain that if they have a prescription if they're on home monitoring?
Good question. I probably won't have as much of. That's a good question. I'm not going to.
Wasn't trying to
I
throw
don't
a
know.
stumper.
I don't know if I've had that one yet.
All right, thank you.
Other questions of the sheriff? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move now into subcommittee reports. Executive committee, our next meeting is on December 28th. Again, I solicit any ideas, suggestions, thoughts you may have. It's a good group that I work with, but again, if you have ideas, certainly let me know. We always meet in my courtroom at noon, so if you're free to attend or free to let me know what you may be interested in. I think, as you recall, we implemented our Child Welfare Juvenile Justice Subcommittee. We had our first meeting a couple of weeks ago, and Anjali Patel, our new Corp Counsel, who is assigned to Child Protection, graciously agreed to serve as chair with modest nudging from this judge to take that on. And so she's here today and is going to share with us what that committee is doing and what the next meeting is. Ms. Patel.
So over the last quite a number of years, we've had issues come up in both youth justice and the child protection cases. And so the group is trying to address some of these issues. So we've only had one meeting so far. We have another meeting scheduled for next week. What we're going to be doing is coming up with ideas to start addressing these issues. So one of the big issues is we have ongoing problems with truancy in this county, and how we work with the municipal court, what comes up to the circuit court, and trying to figure out a new procedure for how that's going to work. In child protection area, I know Phil already touched a little bit that Justice Support Center is going to be doing some testing, so that's an issue that we're continuing to work through. A lot of these parents in child protection, they have drug issues, so we got to address that just like we're addressing it in the criminal courts. So we are trying to figure out different ways of managing this. I think there's also some talk about how do we move forward with drug testing of children in the youth justice world. So we've got to figure out all the legality of that and who can handle drug testing of them, the confidentiality issues related to that. So we have quite a bit of work to do. We've only had one meeting so far, so at that first meeting we really were just like brainstorming what issues have come up and trying to determine how to game plan going forward. I think going forward we're going to need to start tackling these issues one by one. It's going to be a lengthy process, but everybody on the subcommittee is involved in the process and everybody's ready to go. So we have our next meeting next week, and hopefully we can get started on getting some of these things done. Because that's where we are.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Patel? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Criminal Justice, Judge Waterman.
Well, Shelby Hilton gets another gold star today. I'll just focus on some information she shared. She provided us with quarterly numbers for justice services. And to give you some perspective, when we are in a bail hearing for all felony cases and many repeat drunk driving offenses, judges will get a pretrial risk assessment that provides data about the likelihood of this individual returning to court, committing a new crime while on bond, and committing a violent crime while on bond. And based on that information, we will put people as a condition of bond on justice services monitoring, usually those that have elevated risks of non-appearance or elevated risks of new criminal activity. And while they're on pretrial monitoring, they will check in periodically with somebody at Justice Services. They'll work with individuals on their needs, helping direct them to services, remind them of court dates, and just kind of keep them together during the process. Shelby shared some numbers. In quarter three, they had 270 people on Justice Services monitoring. Of those individuals, 85% made all of their court appearances. Now, that's pretty good. There's still room for improvement if we can, but that's a pretty good number. What I found striking was the arrest-free rate. 96%. 96% went without arrests. Violent arrest rate, 99%. And even over quarters 1 and 2, it's been incredibly high. So what it tells me as a judge is that when people are on justice services, they're more likely to come back to court when they're supposed to, but more importantly, they're not committing new crimes. They're not getting new files. They're not causing harm to the community. And I think that's important to us as judges when determining the value of justice services monitoring, but also gives, I think, this body and the community as a whole a sense of assurance that this is a worthy program and they're doing some good work. So thank you, Shelby. You get another gold star.
Any questions, Judge Waterman? I think their next meeting is December 11th at noon in a room just down the hallway from here. Domestic violence, Judge Vlack had to leave. Phil.
Thank you. Our next meeting is Wednesday, the 31st of January. At that time, the DA's office is going to present their perspective on processing domestic violence cases. Carl, I think Eric is going to do that. So that is our next meeting. So, it's 11:30 here in this room on that date.
Thank you. And I think you know Judge Vlack also runs a domestic violence court. And I just had the first order issued by Judge Vlack that terminated somebody from domestic violence court. So this is a kind of new territory because generally those folks are pretty successful, but that again has its failings as well in terms of people's ability to conform behaviors to minimal expectations associated with domestic violence. Treatment court, Kate, Phil, I think what we have to report is that their next meeting is December 13th at noon. Anything else? And then certainly last but not least, we always look forward to Bob Raritt and his sharing with us what's happening with behavioral health.
Thank you, Judge Needham. I acknowledged Judge Needham earlier for pronouncing my last name correctly. So, we last met on September 25th. And our next meeting is scheduled for November 27th if we can get a quorum after Thanksgiving. But I'll just quickly recap what we covered in the September meeting. We have a work group that's been established to examine sort of the intersection of public health and public safety, that system of care within our county, to try and find recommendations for how to improve criminal justice involved persons improve the outcomes for them when they encounter the criminal justice system, people with behavioral health conditions like addiction and mental health disorders. That work group meets right before the behavioral health subcommittee meets, and we're in the process of developing a draft, a white paper draft around that. But just another gold star for Shelby, that system mapping is very beneficial, I think, to us in terms of working through our current system of care and making recommendations for improvement. We talked about Phil provided a MAT, medication-assisted treatment update in the jail, where Vivitrol is being provided to those that are interested. We talked about our Year 3 State Opioid Response Grant. It's about $250,000. Most of that money will go towards supports for people leaving jail with substance use or mental health disorders, primarily substance use disorders under this funding. That covers treatment costs for people with opioid or stimulant use disorders. It covers some housing supports, and transportation and a number of other things. We spent down our SOR grant dollars from last year on drug disposal kits and fentanyl test strips. So we have a big supply of those at HHS. If anyone wants any, they're free. These drug disposal kits can render virtually any drug inert, including illicit drugs, so pills and everything else. So they're handy to have around and to dispose of drugs safely and in an environmentally friendly way. We talked a little about Recovery Support Solutions, which is a partnership with Western Wisconsin Health. It's essentially an outpatient withdrawal management service that provides clinics. It's led by Dr. Schwartz at Western Wisconsin Health, and I just want to acknowledge Ailey and Western Wisconsin Health for being just valued partners in our effort to address the addiction crisis that we're under in this county and across the nation. And addressing it as a primary or as a progressive and chronic disease of the brain. And then lastly, we're focused a lot on harm reduction efforts. Those include things like drug disposal kits, Narcan, fentanyl test strips, products right now that help to keep people alive so that we can treat them for their addiction, and to look at ways in which to engage people where they're at in their addiction to help them at whatever level we can until they get some kind of formal help or are able to enter into recovery. So I think that's a recap, unless Ailey or others have additional comments.
Any questions about behavioral health? Judge Nordstrand and I attended the judicial conference last week in southern Wisconsin, and I think there were 200-plus judges there, Supreme Court justices, appellate court, and mental health and its intersection with the criminal justice system continues to be a primary theme for our current Chief Justice, Ziegler. As I think you remember, she hosted a forum last spring, was instrumental, I think, in getting Bob and others out to Vermont for a conference. And then 2 of our plenary sessions are also on mental health and the criminal justice system. So this isn't going away. And it's something, again, that consumes a lot of time and energy, resources. And so anything that we can do locally, but hopefully in cooperation with the court, both at the state level as well as locally, I know will hopefully provide some benefit to all of us. Any questions? That completes the formal agenda. As I said, for next month's meeting, if you have ideas, suggestions, let me, Phil, Mr. Witt, Chair Long, Mr. Anderson, others on Executive Committee, Ms. Avalos know, and we'll certainly entertain and try to implement. I don't have any announcements or correspondence.
Honor?
Yes.
If
Sure.
I have one announcement?
Yes.
I mentioned public protection. I don't have the sheet in front of me. Drug Take Back Day at the end of October. We ended up, there was one in April, there's one in October. So for the 6 months, and we grab all the, out of the medication drop boxes at the police departments, I believe we took down 680 pounds. There was 200 just out of our lobby. Hudson had 220, and then the other municipalities throughout. So I just wanted to, when you talked about safe disposal of drugs, we took a lot of drugs down. So
I think just wow is the only explanation I can come up with. Any other announcements? Thanks to all of you. Our next meeting is January 11, again in this room at 8 o'clock. And with that said, we are adjourned.